You are watching
Trinity Episcopal School Production Network.
TESPN.
All right, really excited for this week's TESPN podcast, and a little bit different this time. Usually we talk to Trinity student athletes about their exploits on the athletic fields, but today we're going to really highlight the student part in student athletes, because these two young men, along with two other representatives of our Titan team, are leading our Battle of the Brains team to the Final Four. And just as we filmed this about 48 hours ago, your victory over St. Christopher's in the quarterfinals of Battle of the Brains just aired. So first question, maybe for folks who don't know all about Battle of the Brains, Cooper Michalik here, senior, I guess, are you captain of the team?
That's actually Colin.
Okay, Colin's the captain. But anyway, Cooper, maybe explain just how it works for folks who haven't seen it before.
So it's kind of a typical quiz show. The questions are similar to Jeopardy. The only difference being we don't have categories or monetary value. All the questions are worth the same. But there are 3 toss-up rounds where she just asks questions and you buzz in an answer, and that's very typical. And then there's one where it's a category round. It's 10 questions from a single category. The points are worth less, but it's only your team can answer. And then the last round, which is the final round of the toss-up questions, all the points are doubled, and that's really kind of where the rounds are won and lost, obviously.
Yeah, and I watched your match against St. Christopher's over the weekend, and it was just about tied or really close going into that final round, and then you really caught fire in the final round. We'll talk about that in a minute. But also just for viewers of this who might not know, so I believe it started out with 32 teams.
Yes, sir.
And all schools, mostly from the Richmond area, but some are from further away.
Yeah, it's mainly, I found it's Richmond, Charlottesville, and then the Hampton area.
So it started with 32, and then it's down to 4.
Yeah.
Right, you play against another school, and so you all are in the Final Four. Do we know who the other Final Four teams are yet?
We play Cave Spring on Wednesday.
Yep.
And then if we win that, hopefully we would play in the championship on Thursday, and we don't know when those air, so
Right. Gotcha.
obviously
So
we're
we can't
not-
say who those would be. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Cave Spring is in Roanoke, so they come all the way to Richmond for that. Matthew, you're a freshman. And Matthew, say your last name for me.
Waidelich.
Waidelich. Okay. So Matthew Waidelich, just a freshman, and you chimed in with a couple answers in that St. Chris match. What, as a new student at Trinity this year, attracted you to try out Battle of the Brains?
So I've been interested in trivia and I'm fairly good at it, I believe. So I went to a couple Battle of the Brains meetings, and then knowing Cooper through cross country kind of helped get accustomed to it. And then I guess I impressed the coaches to make the TV team for the second match against Nansman Suffolk.
That's awesome. So Cooper, back to the St. Christopher's match. Like I said, it was super close after the first 2 rounds. Y'all might have been up 10 or 20, but it was tight. And then in that toss-up round at the end with the 20-point questions, and is there a penalty if you chime in early and miss?
So there is.
So it's a risk to chime in early.
It's definitely a risk, but sometimes you just kind of get in the groove, similar to basketball, where you end up taking shots you probably shouldn't, but they just seem to fall, and a little bit of luck there.
Yeah, well, that's funny. You almost anticipated my question, which is I was going to ask you, is it kind of like being in the zone in basketball? That's literally the question I was just about to ask you. But you kind of already answered it for me. So I mean, the whole team was for sure contributing, and Kendall had a couple key answers in the round where it was just our team. Kendall was definitely the only one that knew Nat King Cole.
100%.
And Colin definitely had a few, Matthew had a few, but Cooper, you kind of put the team on your back in that last toss-up round. Can you just describe what you were feeling during that?
Yeah. So for me, a lot of it is trying to make sure that you can cross off as many random guesses as you can in the start of it. And then what I found to be the biggest help is to try to find out what they're actually asking. Because a lot of times they'll kind of withhold what the actual question is till the end. And there's been a couple where I've just looked absolutely foolish, buzzing in early and just guessing completely, not even what they were looking for.
There was one in the St. Chris one where
Yeah.
You were like information systems.
Yeah,
It
I was just way too
it was
early.
very different than
And
that.
those always make you laugh.
Computer
but
systems are
I just never focus on them and try to just work on the next question.
So Matthew, let me ask you, and Cooper, you can answer this maybe as well after Matthew's done. What does a Battle of the Brains practice look like?
So it's in Mr. Benson's room, and Miss Crawling's usually there. Miss Crawling and Mr. Trice are there. Miss Crawling, she like watches on the batches and writes down the questions, which is very like time and commitment on her part.
Yeah.
And then she'll read off the questions, and we'll usually try and answer them as quick as possible.
So basically from past episodes.
Yeah, and the main goal of those, apart from obviously trying to learn new stuff, which is a key point of this, but it's also to kind of practice getting in the groove with when to guess for questions. And also, I think it's so important when it comes to Battle of the Brains, knowing what you don't know. It's almost as valuable as knowing what you do, because there's no way that you can go out there and know every single question. So you really have to know what your limits are, and I think that's why our team has worked so well this year, especially with Matthew coming in the second episode. We've really kind of rounded out our kind of depth of knowledge. And like Kendall, you mentioned, she knows the writers and the operas and classical literature. And I know a lot. I mean, I know a good amount about sports and history. I cannot name a single opera. And she really has been able to step up and carry our team through that. And Colin, as I'm sure you know, knows so much about physics and science that he can really get those more technical questions. And then Matthew and I both go, especially in those practices, go tit for tat when it comes to those general knowledge sports questions. So it's a really good, well-rounded team this year.
You know, Cooper, we didn't rehearse this, but it's funny because you actually just, again, for the second time in a row, anticipated what I was about to ask you, which is essentially, you know, in a sport, you want to build a team. Let's use basketball, for example, where you have some shooters, some ball handlers, some size, some rebounding, some people that do the dirty work, the little things, you know, set picks and take charges and dive on the floor for loose balls. But that's what I was going to ask you. In a quiz bowl type situation, you don't want 4 people that are all great at history and sports, but you don't want 4 people that only know about opera. So it's really about filling in the gaps for one another.
And it's really interesting because a lot of people think that just due to the fact that it's quote-unquote general knowledge, that you can have one person who knows enough to carry a whole team to a championship. And while it definitely helps, I think it is a lot like basketball, where you can't have one player, you know, carry you to a finals, but you also can't have no superstars. You kind of need somebody to take the lead but have a really good role-playing team behind him. So I think it really is similar to basketball in that sense.
Matthew, so the other 3, at least on the TV team, are seniors.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot, I guess, you know, I assume this is an activity, Battle of the Brains, that you'll continue with going forward. I guess 2-part question. One, do you feel like next year a lot is going to be on your shoulders with Cooper and Kendall and Colin all graduating? And 2, are there any other younger participants who have maybe not appeared on the TV team but that we should look out for in the future?
So yes, this year what were the questions again, sir?
I was just saying, with you as kind of the only returning starter, if you will, for next year, do you feel like a lot's going to fall on you?
Yes, I do feel like because I have more experience than some of the other people that just come to practices, that like I'll have more experience and it will fall on me. And then in practices, a couple people, Hayden Beach in particular, is showing out.
Yeah, I can imagine Hayden would be really good. I definitely look forward to hopefully seeing him on the TV team next year. And then, you know, the thing about Battle of the Brains that you all might know, but you might not, is Battle of the Brains has been going on since I was a little kid. I used to watch it. It was on PBS, like the local PBS station, when I was a kid. It was hosted by a man named Frank Soden, who was a legendary sports broadcaster who also did Battle of the Brains. And it moved to CBS 6, I think about 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's the 20th
Because I think
season.
they mentioned that. And Cheryl Miller, who's been a TV personality in this market in Richmond since at least the 80s. I mean, like for me growing up in Richmond, Cheryl Miller's always been there. So I'm just going to ask, do you all understand like what an institution and how much history, I guess Cooper, I'll ask you, how much history there is with Battle of the Brains, and also what a cross-section of people watch it. You know, I played for you all right before we started filming. My 98-year-old great aunt watches it religiously and left me a voicemail how she was so pleased that Trinity beat St. Christopher's. Do you think about just where you fall into that long legacy of this program?
It's crazy to think about, but I remember the first time that I came home from doing a TV taping, because I didn't join the club until my junior year. So last year we came home from a TV taping, and I told my parents about it, and they're like, Battle of the Brains, hey, I remember when, and I had no idea that it, was that, much of an institution around the Richmond high school scene, and now, I mean, this has been a historically great year for Trinity, and it's just so cool to, and have the opportunity. I mean, I'm sure hundreds of kids just in the Richmond area, the Trinity area, probably watch Jeopardy with their family, and I know I did, and to have the chance to do something so close to that on TV, it's just such a privilege for really anybody who gets to be on it.
That's awesome. Okay, I think I want to try something. This has just popped in my head.
All right.
I don't even know the questions I'm going to ask yet, but let's do I'm going to do a few trivia questions for you guys. Let's see how it goes, okay?
All
All right. This is a pretty easy one, but this man has won the most Super Bowls as a player.
Tom Brady.
This war is sometimes in world history known as the 7 Years' War.
French and Indian.
He assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, kicking off World War I.
Pravo Principe. I can't say his name. I'm bad with names.
Yeah, I think it's Principe, but
Principe,
I believe
sorry.
it's pronounced. No, that's good. That's good. Upon the election of Abraham Lincoln, the first state to secede from
South
the Union.
Carolina.
In the 1986 World Series, the ball went between the legs of this Boston Red Sox first baseman, leading to the New York Mets coming back to win.
I don't know that.
I've seen it.
Oh, I've seen the clip.
Yeah.
Bill Buckner.
Bill Buckner.
All right, let's make sure we end on a make here. The only person in American history to be Secretary of State, Vice President, and President is?
Thomas Jefferson.
Yes, Matthew brought it home. Good job. Well, this was fun, guys. Really enjoyed watching you all on TV this weekend, and good luck in the semifinals against Cave Spring, and hopefully the finals to follow. And you're definitely making the whole Trinity community proud. And like you said, been kind of a historic season. We've had a lot of our sports teams in terms of football with the undefeated state championship. Boys soccer went all the way to the championship game, their furthest run ever. And as far as I know, I think this is the furthest we've gotten in Battle of the Brains as well. So you all have a lot to be proud of, and hopefully you can bring home the trophy.
Yeah, hopefully.
Matthew, thank you. Cooper, thank you.
Thank you so much for
All
having
right,
us.
we'll see you next time.